Hi, Jamie, and welcome to Entrepreneurcast. It's such a great pleasure to finally have you with us today.
It was a pleasure to be here, Svietlana.
So, Jamie, before we get going with the business side of things, tell us a little bit about who are you outside of your business and what do you enjoy doing in your spare time?
Well, so there's all kinds of things. I'm passionate about people and about life, and I like doing all sorts of stuff. Like this morning, I was at the. It's funny actually. I discovered that I love weightlifting 2 years ago. So ever since, like every other day, I'm in the gym lifting weights because I just love doing it. But I never even knew that for most of my life. I've got two young daughters, so I love spending time with them. I love reading. I play the guitar. I love creating stuff. I love exploring. I kind of like coffee. So yeah, lots of different things.
We have quite a few things in common. I don't play a guitar, but I sing. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, the musical side of things, and I definitely love coffee.
Yeah.
So, Jamie, tell us about your business. What is it that you do, and what inspired you to start it?
Well, I used to be in project management way back, like 20 years ago. And I went on a personal development course to kind of sharpen my influence skills. And I went on this course and I had an insight that weekend, which was, oh, you can do whatever you want. Because I'd always had friends who were saying, why don't you start your own business or why? And I didn't, I thought there was something different about me that meant I couldn't do it. And what I realized that weekend was that I was passionate, and I am passionate about how the mind works and about unleashing your potential and that sort of thing. And so I've spent the last 20 years doing that and exploring that. So I created, you may have heard of something called neurolinguistic programming. I created an NLP business in the UK in 2003 and grew that for the best part of a decade, then sold it. The business was called Salad, and that was very successful product business. But then something interesting happened, which was I read Tim Ferriss's book, The 4 Hour Work Week, and I was like, oh, that's what I need to do. I need to get my business running on autopilot so I can go and travel the world and have mini adventures and that sort of thing. So we did that. We basically got the business running so I could work it on a few hours a week. And I went away for my first mini retirement, which was a 3-month ski holiday to Whistler in Canada. So I was really excited because I'm like, this is it. I'm finally successful. It's going to be amazing. I'm there. Fantastic. And then like 6 weeks into my first mini retirement, and I was bored and I was distracted and I was feeling off purpose and I was feeling frustrated because I was kind of like, this isn't it either. And according to the rules of my profession, I should be over the moon. And instead I've got sore feet and I'm a bit miserable on what the hell's going on here. So I went back to the drawing board. And what I found was that I'd been laboring under a misunderstanding of how the world works. And I've worked with lots of entrepreneurs and business owners and people in all walks of life. And almost everyone I work with is laboring under the same misunderstanding. So we'll probably talk about that a bit. So anyway, I went back to the drawing board. I ended up selling my old business and going in a completely new direction, which is sharing the principles behind clarity, sharing this new understanding. And it's interesting, Svetlana, because I wrote the book, my first book, Clarity, in 2012. Well, it was published at the beginning of 2013, and it's just been on fire ever since. So the business has been growing. We've been growing the team. We're impacting more and more people. My latest book, Results, just came out, and that became a Sunday Times bestseller. So it's really, I don't know, I think that the world is changing so fast at the moment. Technology is making new possibilities more available than they ever were before. And there's an overhead that comes with that as well. So it's like it's a double-edged sword. And so it's just a really exciting time to be able to help people with that and help people thrive and flourish in this work. So you asked, what's the business? The business is, pardon me, the business is a whole bunch of different things. So I'm an author, obviously, so I write books and do keynotes and speeches and that sort of thing. Working with corporates, but also working with entrepreneurs. So I'll tell you a story, actually. Have you come across the Dollar Beard Club?
No.
Oh, okay. Dollar Beard Club are amazing. They started this business summer before last, and in 12 months grew it from nothing to being like a $14 million business. And they did it using viral videos. So they're doing viral videos. And so I was very impressed by that. You Google them, their videos are funny. So they've built this business incredibly fast, very successful. And I was listening to a podcast that the founder of the business, a guy called Chris Stoikos, was doing. And in the middle of this podcast, which was about video, he said, as Jamie Smart says in his book, Clarity, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, holy shit. So I reached out to him. I'm like, hey, man, thanks for the name check. Well, it turns out that he'd read my book and it had turned his life around. And that's where he started the business from. And we got on Skype and we're having a conversation. And he ended up inviting me out to LA to speak at an event that he was doing to like 70 entrepreneurs. And so I was sharing the principles behind Clarity with this group of entrepreneurs. And what you find again and again, Svietlana, is that the impact is kind of instantaneous because people kind of tune into it and they realize it's pointing people to what you've already got going for you. And as people kind of wake up to that and see the truth of it, it takes stuff off your mind and kind of reconnects you or realigns you with who you really are and the source of your power and creativity and innovation and all that sort of stuff. So that's what the business is. We work a lot with coaches and trainers and consultants and people helping them bring these principles into their work with clients as well. And yeah, it's great fun.
Tell me more about your book, the clarity. I assume it's all about getting the clarity and figuring life for yourself.
Well, yeah, yes and no. I mean, it's interesting, Svietlana. It's working on the basis that, like, if you stop and think about it for a moment, if you've ever had one of those snow globes, you know, where you shake it up and it's full of snow, what do you need to do to clear the liquid in the snow globe? Well, you don't need to do anything. You just need to stop shaking it. So the starting point for all my work is the realization that clarity is your mind's natural state. That all these qualities, whether it's clarity or peace of mind or motivation or presence or love and connection or happiness and joy, these are natural for human beings. A 2-year-old can do it. So the issue isn't how do you do that stuff. The issue is what gets in the way of it. And what gets in the way of it is what I call contaminated thinking, that is thinking arising from a misunderstanding of how our experience works. So that's what the books are about, is about how to clear away that misunderstanding so you can benefit from the clarity, resilience, creativity, and impact that's already there within you and already there within everyone. Like, it's so interesting when I'm speaking to groups, I'll ask, when do you get your best ideas? Like, when do you get your best ideas, Svietlana?
It really depends, but and that's actually one of the questions I was going to ask you.
Oh, I beat you to it.
But starting with me, I often get ideas actually when I work out. So
So that's not unusual. That's not unusual. The top answers are like in the shower, at the gym, when I'm going for a run, driving to and from work, just before I fall asleep at night. So those are the typical answers that people give. And I've literally asked thousands of people that question. When do you get your best ideas? And almost everyone says when they're not thinking about the thing. So when they're not thinking about the problem they're trying to solve, or the solution they're trying to get, or the strategy they're trying to figure out, boom, it comes to them. And actually, if you look through history, what you discover, it's interesting. I was doing a talk for the council of the Institute of Actuaries. So this is the council of this profession, basically, of like nearly 30,000 people. And they were charged with setting strategy for the future of the profession. And so I gave them a talk on clarity and strategy. I did the keynote for their thing, and to kick off their workshop. And I was saying this, that if you look at the great strategists through history, whether we're talking about Napoleon or Clausewitz, whether we're talking about Steve Jobs or Bill Gates, what they all describe is that they would do their homework, like they would study the competition, or they would look at Napoleon would read through data about previous wars and battles and things. But then they would go and they would chill out. They would go for a walk, or they would relax, or they would go for a bath, or they would go to the gym or whatever. And then it would come to them, boom, they would have an insight. They would have a realization when they weren't trying to figure it out. And what each of these people realized is that there's a natural capacity of the mind, your capacity for realization and insight. And the more you're able to understand that you have that capacity going for you, and not only that you have it going for you, but that you can rely on it, and you can benefit from it, and it'll give you what you need. The more you realize that, the more relevant it becomes to create the context for that to happen, and create the conditions for that to happen, and to study and do basically figure out how to make that more likely to happen at the times when you need it.
So Jamie, where do you come up with your best ideas?
Well, this is the great thing. Now that I understand these principles, I don't need to, I get them all over the place all the time. So I've had great ideas just as a plane was about to take off going on holiday. I've had great ideas in the shower, but I've also had great ideas just wandering about doing the shopping or whatever. Because here's what you'll discover, Svietlana, is that the deeper you understand how this works, the more freedom you have to get them wherever you want them. So what people often think when they first hear this, they think, oh yeah, okay, so I need to take more showers, or I need to go for more walks, or whatever. And I understand that, but actually I just use that as an example to start pointing people to the truth of how it works. Because most of us have been taught that if you want to figure something out, if you want to get better ideas, if you want to come up with creative insights, you got to think about it harder. But actually, that couldn't be further from the truth. So as you start to understand how it works better, you start to get the insights in all kinds of different situations and contexts.
So Jamie, what would you say between your family life and within the time with your daughters, and between your business, what does your typical day look like?
Well, I'm going to say I don't really have a typical day, but that's probably not true. But I have like loads of different things that I'm doing. So for instance, this week, okay, on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I'm working with trainers and coaches and consultants on our Clarity Coach training program and our Clarity Trainer training program. So I'm doing that Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Thursday, I'm mostly going to be chilling. I'm mostly relaxing on Thursday. Tomorrow, I'm spending all day with our new marketing director. So we've got just a bunch of stuff to do to get on the same page, to make sure, we've got our direction set for the year and everything like that. So that's happening tomorrow. Today, I'm doing a call with you, doing the interview with you. I've just spent the morning figuring out a bunch of communications for some stuff I'm doing next Monday. Then this afternoon, I'm launching a mastermind group. And so I've got to write the communications for that to the people who I'm inviting to join it. So that's this week. In 2 weeks, I'm going off to Tenerife for a retreat for 2 weeks. Like, so I've got a week of holiday and then a week of retreat. Next week, what am I doing? I've got interviews. It just depends. You know, I've got, it's every week is different. Now, here's the thing. I'm keeping lists of what do I spend my time on and all that sort of thing, 15-minute chunks, because I recognize that there are certain things that are actually I should be outsourcing. So one of the things I've got tomorrow, Thursday, is a strategy call with virtual assistants to see what I can just get off my plate and outsource, because I want to spend more and more time doing the stuff that I'm really, really great at and really enjoy and really energizes me. And you know what it's like. It's all too easy to spend time doing stuff that's time consuming, but not necessarily that leveraged. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah, it's kind of chaotic.
Most entrepreneurs spending their time all over the place, and they never know what's tomorrow gonna bring. So, it's just typical entrepreneurial day. There is nothing typical about it.
Well, I think there's some truth in that. And it depends what you enjoy. I know some people look at how I'm organized and they're like, oh my God, that's insane. How can you do that? But you got to do what makes sense to you.
So Jamie, throughout our entrepreneurial and business journey, we come across a lot of challenges. What would you say was your greatest challenge, and how did you manage to overcome it?
Entrepreneurial challenge or life challenge?
Well, usually we go into the business challenges.
Okay.
I'm happy to get both.
Well, so there are a couple of different things. Like one time I went through a situation where some business colleagues really screwed me over. Like I got shafted, and it was really painful and really upsetting and that sort of thing. So that was a challenge. And how did I get over it? Well, at first I didn't. At first I was like, it really hurt, and I was really bothered. And then I was kind of resentful and angry and frustrated and all that sort of stuff. And that went on for longer than I'd like to admit. Like there's probably a good 5 or 6 months that I was kind of licking my wounds and had my tail between my legs and that sort of thing. And then at a certain point, I just kind of went, fuck them. I'm gonna do whatever I like, and that was that. But here's the thing: the whole situation, to some degree, was a reflection. Like this is a long time ago. This is like 6 or 7 years ago. The whole situation was a reflection of me being too caught up in what other people thought of me, and wanting to be accepted and wanting to be liked and that sort of thing. And it's funny, Svietlana, like we've all got blind spots, I guess, things that we can't see. What I realized is that this was a lesson that I needed to learn. And it was a painful lesson to learn. I think I've learned it. It's like, oh, okay, I learned it. And because without even knowing it, I had been kind of adjusting myself to try and fit what other people wanted me to be and that sort of thing. And that's just no way to live. It's not good. And so the funny thing is, even though this experience was really painful and horrible and that sort of thing, it did me a favor. It really woke me up to a weakness or a flaw in my character that needed dealing with. And I'm glad I dealt with it then, because if I hadn't, it might have been far more painful to deal with. I don't know. So yeah, that was one. Another one was around the same time, or similar kind of time, maybe a little bit later than that. Just not having a clear enough eye on cash flow. And cash flow in businesses, it's like, how it looks to me is cash isn't important unless you don't have any. And then it becomes really, in business, to me, it looks like cash is to a business as oxygen is to a human being. Like, I don't spend my day thinking about oxygen. I don't need to, it's fine. But if I do without oxygen for any length of time, I really miss it. So it looks to me like it's important as a business owner to keep, I mean, everyone's heard this, the old income is vanity, profit is sanity, cash is reality. It's so true. You gotta know what's going on with cash flow, and that's one of those things that we overlook at our peril, because it's like oxygen to a business. It's not a core value of the business, but it's really important for basic life support functions. So yeah, I screwed up with that and came close to running my business off a cliff at one point because of that. And I feel very fortunate to have managed to pull it back in time and figure it out. Basically, it involved, tightening our belts for a little while, and just going into kind of damage limitation mode. And we came out a bit stronger. So I'm glad of that.
Well, that's your business challenges, but you really got me intrigued about your biggest life challenge. So would you share that with us as well?
Well, yes, I guess one of the big ones for me. So when I was a little kid, I was very anxious and stressed out and that sort of thing. And then when I was 12, I found an amazing way of dealing with it, which was drinking alcohol. It just worked great. Like, all of a sudden, I didn't have any problems with stress or anxiety or anything like that. So I was sold. Huh?
At 12?
Yeah, I was a late bloomer. So I loved drinking. But it really caused me all kinds of problems. But no matter what the problems were, I seemed to just keep drinking. And so when I was in my early 30s, I got married. And within a month of getting married, she was ready to leave because I was a complete, pisshead. And I said, "Don't worry, baby, I'll stop drinking." So I did. I stopped drinking. But then I went from bad to worse, because I didn't realize it, but that alcohol had basically been medication for a thinking problem. So all of a sudden, I was off my medication. Like, I stopped cold turkey. And after 9 months of that, I was suicidal. So I ended up getting into recovery from alcoholism. And that was a tough road, but it really, I don't know, the life I live today and the business I have today and the things I get to do today. Like, I love my work, and I love the difference I'm able to make in people's lives, and I love what I get to do. None of that would have been possible without having gone through that journey.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us, Jamie.
Oh, you're welcome.
So, Jamie, we've gone through your challenges, and there were some tough times. But on the bright side of things, what would you say was your greatest success?
Oh, I don't know. It sounds strange, but I don't really think of it like that. I'll give you some examples. The very first product I ever made was a deck of cards with language patterns on it. So this was of interest to people when I was doing NLP all those years ago. And I created this deck of cards. And it's funny to think of it now. So this was, I was early on in business. And we bought like 1,000 decks. It probably cost us about £1 a deck. and we sold them for 10 or 15 pounds. And it was, you know, a low cost product, and it was nice and fun. But that product, these language cards, that established the brand of my business. So when I started my business Salad back in 2003, I literally had my colleagues send me emails going, "Are you really calling it Salad? That's a terrible name." And I was like, "Yeah." And it just took off. It was huge, but it so I don't know. It looks to me like everything's connected together. Like as far as I know, Svetlana, my biggest success was stopping drinking, because none of the other stuff would have happened without that. Or maybe my biggest success was calling my first company Salad. Or maybe my biggest success was going off to Whistler for a 3-month ski holiday so I could discover that the answer and go back to the drawing board and find this new understanding that's ended up, you know, being the basis of my books and my new business and everything like that. I'm reminded of, it's funny, my youngest daughter, Tallulah, there's this story that she loves me to read to her. And in fact, I included it in the new book. So let me read it to you. It's a very short story. And it's a traditional, Chinese, like a Taoist story. Oh, I can't remember what page it's on. So I'll just tell it to you. Anyway, so it's about this Chinese farmer. And one day, his prize horse runs off. His prize stallion goes running off. And all his neighbors come around and go, "Oh, that's really bad luck. That's too bad." And the farmer goes, maybe not. So the next day, the prize stallion comes back with 2 horses walking with it, 2 great horses. And so the farmer and his son, they corral them. And all the neighbors are like, "You lucky man, you're so lucky." And the farmer's like, maybe not. So then the farmer's son is trying to break the new horses, like trying to break them in, you know, so he's trying to ride them and that sort of thing. And he gets thrown off and both his legs get broken. And all the neighbors are like, "Oh, that really is bad luck." And the farmer's like, maybe not. And the neighbors are like, "What's wrong with you?" And then the local warlord comes along and conscripts all the young men to take them away to the front to fight. All of them except the young man, because he's got 2 broken legs. And all the neighbors are like, "You jammy bastard." And the farmer's like, maybe not. And Tallulah loves that story, and I love reading it to her. And it seems to me that we live in a world where, you know, everyone's focused on the big win and being successful and that sort of thing. And nothing wrong with that. Like, it's great to have goals, and it's great to accomplish things, and it's great to give value to the world, and it's great to make money, and it's great to build a great company. I get it. And I love that stuff too. And I'm inspired and excited about that stuff too. But if you believe that your happiness, your success, your well-being, your peace of mind, your fulfillment, your satisfaction in life comes from that stuff, you're in for a rough ride, because that's not where it comes from. All of those goodies, they come from inside you. They come from inside you. And if you believe they come from out there, well, that's what causes stress, and that's what causes overwhelm. That's what causes business owners to fall into addiction or workaholism. That's what causes all kinds of the negative side effects. And, you know, there's a serious point, actually. One of the things that's just coming out now, especially around Silicon Valley and that sort of thing, is they're suddenly shining a light on all the entrepreneurs who are struggling with depression or burnout, or they're suicidal, or that sort of thing, because they've bought into this bullshit idea that happiness and peace and a feeling of successfulness and well-being can come from getting the right stock offering, or getting the right valuation, or getting the right amount of turnover, or getting the killer product out into the market, or whatever. And it's just not true. Now, so people hear me say that, and then they say, so you saying there's something wrong with wanting to do that stuff? It's like, no, nothing wrong with it. I love doing it. I love doing cool stuff. My new book, Results, when we launched it, I wanted it to become a Sunday Times business bestseller. And so I did a bunch of stuff to maximize the chances of that happening. And it happened. And I was excited and over the moon for like an hour. Like it went, way, great, celebrate. And it's like, okay, what next? Because I knew it didn't, whether it became a bestseller or not, my happiness is not dependent on it. Whether it sells 1 million copies or 500 copies is not going to affect my levels of happiness and well-being. Do I want it to sell 1 million copies? Sure. That's the game we're playing, isn't it? Just like if you're running a race, do you want to come in first? Sure, that's built into the game. But you don't want your fulfillment, you don't want your sense of self and of who you are and of your value in life. You don't want to pretend that that's a function of what you achieve, because if you do, you're going to be fucked. Not in a good way.
Jamie, I love all this stuff, and I would really like to go deeper into it because, as you said, it comes from within. But as we both know, a lot of people, as well as entrepreneurs, they struggle to find that strength and peace and success and everything else within. So they start looking outside for it, and that's how obviously we go and start, some people get to drinking, others get drugs or any other addictions because they look for something to fulfill them and they never can find it. So obviously, as the man who found that strength within, and you obviously know the whole process, you went through it. Would you just kind of go a bit deeper into where do even people start looking for that? How do they find that success within?
Yeah, so this is a great question. And here's the interesting thing. Remember I said it's so easy a baby can do it? Like if you look at the average, if you wanted a list of entrepreneurial qualities, look at the average 3-year-old. The average 3-year-old is adventurous and exploratory. They're playful and fun. They're experimental. They try things out. They're courageous. They're motivated, all that stuff. So the question isn't how do you find that? The question is what gets in the way. So what gets in the way? I'm gonna take a short detour. But if you imagine, did you have a teddy bear when you were a little girl, or something like that, like a stuffed toy?
Can't really remember when I was a kid. I had a lot when I was a teenager because I missed out on it when I was a kid. So then I got
a bunch of them when I was a teenager. Well, a lot of people will give children like a security blanket or a teddy bear or whatever. And it genuinely seems to the kid like their peace and well-being and security and happiness and comfort come from the teddy bear or come from the blanket. But you and I know that the teddy bear is full of stuffing. The teddy bear doesn't have a feeling emitter in it. All of those feelings of peace and well-being and comfort and security are coming from within the child. None of them are coming from the teddy bear. 100% is coming from within the child, and 0% is coming from the teddy bear. Well, it's the same with all of the adult teddy bears. We may believe that our feelings of happiness and comfort and well-being and success are coming from the partner or the money or the business or the clients or the future goals or the past success. But that's a trick of the mind, just like the teddy bear is a trick of the mind. 100% of those feelings are coming from within you. Every single one of them, even the ones that seem like they're coming from the goals or the partner or the money or the business or whatever. And same with the unpleasant feelings too. The feelings of stress or worry or anxiety or fear or doubt or whatever, they're coming from inside too. So when you say people struggle to find it, no, they don't. It's the only game in town. Every feeling you've ever felt in your whole life has come from within you. And every feeling you're ever gonna feel is coming from within you. That's not the issue. The issue is you mistakenly believe they're coming from somewhere else. And you're in good company, because I do too. And I do this for a living, and I still get tricked into believing my experience is coming from somewhere other than my psychology in the moment, because that's what it looks like. And a simple example of this is if you like, funnily enough, so I got up to go to the gym this morning. I looked out the window, and it's the most beautiful sunrise over London. It's just this gorgeous sunrise. And it really looked like the sun came up. But of course, we know that the Earth is actually going around the sun. The sun's not coming up. That's just a trick of the mind. But it really looks like the sun comes up. It really seems that way, but it's an optical illusion. Well, it's the same with the belief that our feelings are coming from somewhere other than thought, from out there in other people, or out there in future goals or future catastrophes or past successes or past failures or money or the government or whatever. It can really seem like our felt experience is telling us about something out there, but it's always telling us about thought in the moment. So here's the thing. You asked for the how. Well, here's the how. The how is, like, I can say that to you and you can go, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense, but it doesn't do anything for you, because there's a difference between seeing that and, whoa, seeing it, like really seeing it so it impacts you. So that's my job, basically. My job is to create the conditions where people go, whoa, okay, I get it. So I'll give you an example. I have this guy, interesting guy. So this guy, I do these things called CEO intensives. So I work with the owner of a company or the CEO of a company, and we work together for 3 days, one-on-one. And on the first day, they make their laundry list. Like, it'll be like a list of goals they want to achieve and problems they want to solve and changes they want to make. So they make their list on the first day. And then we spend the next 3 days just pointing to how this stuff works. And then at the end of the second day or the beginning of the third day, we get the list out again. And usually they're like, it doesn't look like that to me anymore. All the things they had as goals have changed. The things they have as problems don't look like problems anymore. It all shifts. Anyway, I'm working with this guy. He runs he had bought a business 2 years earlier and done brilliantly. He'd managed to double it in turnover, increase its profitability, grow the business really successfully. However, he was working 7 days a week. He was working like 18 hours a day. He had a young child who he hadn't seen in weeks because he wasn't getting to spend any. By the time he got home, the child was in bed. And so he originally contacted me because his team were not coming up to standard. They weren't performing the way he wanted them to perform. So he wanted some training for his team. And I'm having the initial conversation with him. And it occurs to me, I said, you know what? I think you and me need to work together. You and me need to work together. I said, because if you and me work together, not only will we have a better idea of whether it's useful for me to work with your team, but the changes that you make for yourself are going to impact on your team as well. He was like, okay, that makes sense. So anyway, first day of our 3 days together, comes in. So this is in like a luxury. Oh no, that one we did in my apartment actually. So he comes to my apartment. I had one of my apprentices sitting in on it. So we're at my apartment, and he makes a list because this guy was stressed out of his mind. Okay, completely stressed out. So I said, well, give me your theory on why you're stressed. Make a list of what's causing your stress. So he goes, let me tell you. He goes, so he starts making this list on the flip chart, and it's got his family causing him stress, his financial situation, his business, his staff, his customers, the competition, the bank, his extended family who had loaned him money for the business, regulations from the government. He's got like 30 things on the list, and he's like, all these things are contributing to my stress, right? I said, okay, would you like to hear my theory about where your stress comes from? He's like, please. So I go up on the flip chart and I write, you're living in the feeling of thought in the moment. 100% of your stress is coming from your own thinking. It's all internally generated. So he looks at this. I said, 0% is coming from the stuff on your list. 100% of it's coming from your psychology. So he goes, I'm going to need some time to think about that. So he goes away for lunch, comes back after lunch, goes up to his list, puts a big X through it, and goes, I get it. None of my stress is coming from that stuff. It was all, I was doing it to myself. What are we going to do with the rest of the 2.5 days? Just like that. He saw it. He saw it. And we've all had that. You know, we all have the experience of not being able to, it's sort of like one of those, remember those magic eye drawings in the 1990s where you couldn't, they're like these weird fractal patterns, you can't see anything, and then all of a sudden you can see the image that's there. Or like the FedEx, you know, the arrow in the FedEx logo. That so you can't, someone can't see it, and then once they see it, they can't unsee it. So that's the result of insight and realization. A realization, it is just your perception being brought more closely into alignment with the truth of how reality already works. And once you see something, you can't unsee it.
Amazing. I love this. I'm having so much fun.
Good.
So Jamie, there was actually something else I wanted to ask, out of that, but I don't know how relevant it is. So maybe I'll just...
Me neither.
Just give me a second to get my thoughts together, because
take 10 seconds.
Because it was like I really had this question that I wanted to ask, and then you kept talking, and then you like on the journey of the story you were telling me, you kind of took me away from it.
That's what I do. Well, and this is an interesting thing, and this is relevant, Svietlana, because what I find, I find my clients, when I first start working with them, like if we take the average business person, the reason I start with their list of problems and issues and stuff is my clients all arrive with the same 2 problems. Number one, they've got stuff that they're preoccupied with. They've been thinking about it all the time. And the more they think about it, the more they don't know what to do about it, the more they're unable to solve it. So they've got those problems that they've been trying to fix, sometimes for years, and they just haven't found a solution to it. So they've all got typically something they're preoccupied with. Now, the second thing is they're underestimating what they've got going for them. They're overlooking their innate capacities for creativity and insight and realization and resilience and motivation and all these things. So, and the very place where they're overlooking those capacities is the places where they're preoccupied. And so the first thing I do is I get them to put on paper the stuff that they're preoccupied with. And then I change the subject as quickly as possible, because I know, remember, we said, if I ask, when do you get your best ideas? They're not going to say, when I'm thinking about all the shit on this list. They're not going to say that. They're going to say, well, when I'm not thinking about it, when I'm doing something else. So I want to change the subject as quickly as possible, because all the stuff on their list is kind of a rat's nest of thinking that they don't have any perspective on. So my job, in a way, is to change the subject and get people into a place where they're more connected to who they really are and what they got going for them, and help them wake up from the trick of the mind that's been keeping them struggling until now. Because as soon as they start to wake up to that, they look back at that list and discover that it started to disappear, and that the things which had been problems suddenly have solutions, and the things that had been aspirations suddenly have changed or look different or whatever. They know what to do. So yeah, I'm a bit of a special. Changing the subject is a bit of a specialty for me.
So Jamie, I got my question together.
I thought you might. See, here's the thing. This is a case in point. So when you were thinking about it, you couldn't remember it.
Yeah.
I just changed the subject. Boom, there it is. You have the answer. What a beautiful demonstration.
Definitely. So we are talking about everything being in our mind, right? So,
well, I didn't say everything's in your mind. Like, so for instance, I don't think this phone is in your mind. Otherwise, I would have difficulty holding it. But your experience of this phone, that's in your mind.
correct. So all our experiences, they're all accumulated in our minds, right? So what is your intake on, they say, like, let's say the experiences and traumas you went through, right? People say that you have to live through them and work through them. It's like you can't just, switch on or switch it on or switch it off. Do you understand what I mean? Like,
oh, I totally understand what you mean. The received wisdom, or the prevailing wisdom about trauma, and the idea that you need to work through it, that looks like total bullshit to me. The fact is that most of the trauma that people go through, they get over it without working through it. Now, let me be clear. There are some people who have been through experiences which they coded as traumatic, and they may need the help of a therapist or a skilled change worker or whatever to get through that. But that doesn't mean, well, first of all, there are lots of people, if you take, let's take some horrible situation. There are, horrible situations happen every day. If you take 100 people who go through a terrible situation, like a plane crash or a boat crash or something like that, you'll have a bell curve of response. Some people are take something like the Twin Towers. You had people who got rescued from the Twin Towers who were profoundly traumatized, who it had a hugely terrible effect on them. And you had people walking out of that who were they were fine. It had no traumatic effect at all. Then you had other people who watched it on TV and got traumatized. So the power of thought is playing a crucial role in all of that. So I'm not saying that someone who's been through an experience which they experienced as traumatic, and that is, if it's causing problems in their life, then they should definitely get someone to help them out with that. And in fact, one of the projects that we're putting together at the moment is something to work with armed services personnel who have been through trauma, because we really want to help those folks, and who've got the symptoms of PTSD. However, there's no guarantee that if someone goes through a traumatic experience that they will be traumatized. And there's absolutely no need to relive the trauma to recover from it. Quite the opposite. Reliving it just reinforces, typically just reinforces it. Or I should say, often reinforces it.
So would you say that, people who've been carrying this burden for years and years and years, can it be, let's say, fixed? within
Oh
like
yeah.
hours, or does it take, because usually when you go to therapy, it takes, weeks, months,
Well, I'll
years.
give you an interesting example. So I wrote my second book was The Little Book of Clarity. I've got it right here. So this book, it's like half the size of my original book, Clarity. And I sent it out into the world. So it's just, it's like nice pictures and things like that, basic principles. I get an email from a woman who is an armed services, an army person in the U.S. And she said, "Hi, Jamie. Just writing to say thank you." She said, "I read your book, The Little Book of Clarity, and I know it probably wasn't designed to do this. However, I've had PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, for 10 years. And I've tried everything, and I've had all the different psychotherapies and everything that the Army gave me, and none of it worked. And I read your book, and I don't have PTSD anymore. I had an instant recovery." Now, is that going to happen for everyone? No. But what I'm pointing to, like if you think back 200 years ago, no one knew about germs. Like they didn't know that there was a link between germs and infection. The doctors, the best doctors in the world, didn't know that infections were caused by germs. So if you went to hospital in the early 1800s, terrible, terrible place to go, because they operating theaters were covered in dirt. The doctor's hands were filthy. It was disgusting, because they didn't know that germs caused infections. They just didn't know it. Well, the world of psychology today is like the world of medicine was 200 years ago. The field is a pre-principles field, and there is vast misunderstanding about how our psychology works. And so there's all kinds of theories and ideas and that sort of thing. But just as, like, if you stop and think about it for a moment, the best thing you could do for the doctors of the early 1800s is send someone back there who understands germs, who understands that germs cause infection. You give them that information, they'll figure everything else out themselves. Well, it's the same today. There are principles behind psychology, but the field of psychology hasn't realized them yet. So that's what we're trying to do. That's what we're doing. That's what all my books are about. That's what all my work is about establishing principles for the field of psychology. Because you get a deeper understanding about where your experience comes from and how your perceptions work, and your life's going to transform in wonderful ways.
Well, thank you for sharing all of that, Jamie. I find it really inspirational. I think our chat so far have been super inspirational, and I'm sure you're an inspiration to a lot of people. But you yourself, do you have any people who inspire you, or so-called personal heroes?
I have lots of people who inspire me. I mean, my clients inspire me. I see people do amazing things, and I get blown away. I mean, my heroes. Who are my heroes? I like Frank Zappa and Bill Hicks. I love Peter Diamandis. I think Elon Musk is doing cool stuff. Um, I don't know about heroes. I'd probably have to stick with Frank Zappa and Bill Hicks.
Awesome. And we touched on your book so far, but I do come across a lot of people who say that at some point in life they came across a book that changed their life. Did you have such an experience? Did you at some point come across a book that you could say changed your life? And what was
Yeah,
it?
there have been a few books that had a really, really big impact. There's one by Robert Kiyosaki called The Cash Flow Quadrant, which was really impactful for me at one point in my life. There's one by Robert Anton Wilson called Prometheus Rising that I just loved. I love the book Exponential Organizations, actually, by Salim Ismail. That's a fantastic book. But it's interesting, a lot of people will say, yeah, this book changed my life. I go back and read it again and again and again. I find that the thing that really changes people's lives is insights and realizations. And what happened for me when I read the books I mentioned, which are great books, really highly recommended. But actually, the reason I love them and I feel fond of them, and the reason I have fond memories of them, is because of the insights and realizations I had while reading them. And if you ask anyone about a book that changed their life, and they tell you about what was it, they'll say, well, I don't know, but I was reading it, and then I realized this, and I realized that, and I realized the other. And so I would say that any great book, what it's really doing is it's creating the conditions where you can have the insights and realizations that will make a difference for you. And you've had this, Svetlana, if you stop and think about it a second, you've had someone recommend a book to you where they were like, this book is amazing, it totally changed my life, you'll love it, it's incredible. And you read it and you're like, it's okay. And well, if the book's so great, how come you only thought it was okay? Well, it's because the power didn't come from the book. The power's in the person. And this is the essence of my work. The power's in you. The power isn't in the book or the training course or the coach or in anything else. The power's in you. And I'd say the essential difference between my work and most of the other stuff that I see is I'm just saying that again and again and again. I'm just pointing back to the person again and again, saying it's in you. It's really in you. No, it's really in you. That's where it all comes from. You start to see that for yourself, it's a game changer.
Jamie, you've had quite a journey. You came across a lot of challenges, you had your own successes, you gained a lot of experience, knowledge, and wisdom. So out of your experience, wisdom, knowledge, could you share with us your top 3 tips and strategy to drive your business and life forward for any entrepreneur who's listening to us today?
My answer is probably not gonna be a very satisfying one, and here's why. In my experience, tips don't work. If you think about it, if you look at the cover of every magazine in your local news agents, every magazine will have on the cover top 3 tips for getting a swimsuit body by summer, top 5 tips for business growth, top 4 tips for making more money, top blah, 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 blah. Everyone with the top tips. Top tips are like crack for the conscious mind. We love them. We're like, oh, give me some top tips. Now, when you read those top tips, you read them and you're like, oh yeah, of course. Why didn't I think of that? And then you don't do anything about it. You don't implement them. Now, once in a while, you'll implement one. And when you do, it's because you're reading it or listening to it and you have an insight, boom. Now, the power is in the insight, not in the tip. The tip is what I call additive advice, but the power is in you. So I'll tell you my number one tip. My number one tip is get a deeper understanding of the principles behind how your mind works. Because speaking to you as an entrepreneur, your state of mind, your thinking, your understanding of the mind is behind everything you do every day, everything you create, everything you build, every sales conversation you have, every phone call you have, every interview you do, every communication you send out. Your understanding of the mind is behind that. Your state of mind is behind that. You get a better understanding of the principles behind how your mind works, you're going to have an across-the-board impact on your business. So that's my number one tip. I'm just giving you one.
Thank you for sharing that. And Jamie, throughout your journey, did you come across any kind of resources that helped you to make your business journey easier? I know one is outsourcing.
Yeah, well, I'm just experimenting with outsourcing at the moment. I've never done it before. And so I'm just experimenting with that. I'm trying. Well, one of the things that we've just done is we've moved the business in all the internal communications onto social media. So there's no internal email anymore, which I love because I hate internal email. So that's been effective. We're experimenting with a management, like a goal setting tool called OKRs, objectives and key results. So it's a little too early to say whether that's effective or not. I'd say one of the number one things actually is it looks to me, funnily enough, Apple's original marketing manifesto way back in the day, they said three things. They said, we'll have three things. Number one, we're going to focus. We're going to focus on the things that we can do really, really well. Number two, impute. We recognize that people will judge a book by its cover. So we need to make our things look beautiful. And number three, empathy. We're going to have a better understanding of what's going on for our clients than anyone else does, even better than our clients do. And those still look really good to me. They look like really good ways of getting as close as you can to your clients and really seeing the world through their eyes. I think is really, the more you're able to see the world through your clients' eyes, the more impact you're able to have with them.
Thanks for sharing that, Jamie. Jamie, you came a long way. You got your successes. You have a successful business.
I've clearly been somewhere a long time.
You live in the life that you like living. You're doing whatever you want, whenever you want. But what's your next big dream, goal, aim? And if there is somebody listening today who could potentially help you get there, who would it be?
Well, my big dream, the thing behind all of this, like it looks to me like the principles behind clarity are to psychology what the discovery of germs was to medicine, okay? So if you look at the discovery of germs has led to an average 30-year increase in life expectancy for everyone on the planet. It was just amazing. It's an amazing increase in quality of life due to that not only being discovered, but established as the medical orthodoxy. So it took a while to establish it. And so my dream is of a world just like you and I, Svietlana, were born to parents who already knew about the fact of germs. I'd love to see a world where children are born to parents who already know about the inside-out nature of life, about the principles behind clarity, where that's already understood. And I've got a charity called the Clarity Foundation, and that's the objective of the charity, is to help create the conditions where the first generation of children globally can be born into a world where people understand that clarity and peace of mind and mental health and well-being is innate, and realize the values of that. So that's my vision and that's my dream. How can someone help with that? If someone thinks they can help with that, if someone's got access to stages or to bodies that are interested in that, or if someone's inspired by that, then get in touch with me and let me know how you want to help.
Thank you. Jamie, we are coming to the end of the show. As much as I don't want to say goodbye, I feel like I could stay on the call with you like 4 hours. But before we say our goodbyes, is there anything else you would like to add or advise on to the audience today?
Well, the only thing I'd add is the thing I say to all my clients when I first engage with them, as we're talking about this stuff, I'll often tell people, I'll say, you have reason to be hopeful, no matter what you may have been struggling with, whatever, no matter what you're aspiring to, no matter what, you have reason to be hopeful, because we all have the capacity. I love entrepreneurs. I love working with entrepreneurs. And And what I see again and again is people who are really passionate about people and about making a difference and about giving value and bringing things into the world. And I also see those same people living in a world where people don't really understand entrepreneurs, and where they maybe have struggled at school because their style of doing things didn't fit with the factory classroom they were in and that sort of thing. And so I just want to say to every entrepreneur, I want to say, you have every reason to be hopeful, because you do cool stuff and you have these innate capacities within you. And it's possible for you to have an even more enjoyable and resilient and inspiring and fulfilling and cool life. So you have good reason to be hopeful.
Awesome. Jamie, for anyone who got inspired today and wants to follow you in any way or get in touch with you, and just be part of your life, let's put it that way, what's the best way to get in touch or follow you?
Okay, so there are a couple of things. My website is jamiesmart.com. So that's JAMIESMART.com. But I've also put together something for your listeners. If you go to jamiesmart.com/growth, you can get a couple of things there. You can download the first 2 chapters of my new book, Results. And Results is all about, you guessed it, about results. How do you get results? How do you create results in a way that fits with who you are? So you can download the first 2 chapters free there. And there's also a bonus audio called Awaken Your Inner Stress Buster, because I know lots of entrepreneurs struggle with stress and worry and pressure. And so that audio, it's like a mind programming audio. You can listen to it again and again and again. And what a lot of people find is that even listening to it a couple of times, you start to get a glimpse of how your mind actually works. See, here's the thing, that the stuff I do isn't stuff to practice or memorize or anything like that. I just want to create a space where you can have the insights that are going to have a go forward impact in your life. So you can download those audios from jamiesmart.com/growth. In fact, Results is literally just today being released as an audiobook. So I'm really excited about that, because I know lots of entrepreneurs like listening to audiobooks. I listen to audiobooks all the time. But the cool thing about that, I'm really proud of it actually, Svietlana, because I decided to, as well as reading the book when I was in the studio to do it, I also went off piece lots of times and told other stories. So there's all sorts of stuff in the audiobook that isn't in the hard copy. So you can get that on Audible or iTunes or whatever, and all the books are available on Amazon. And then you can follow me in all the usual places. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. My handle is jamiesmart.com. So the same as the website, but without the dots. So if people want to get in touch, just reach out to me there.
Incredible. Well, thank you so much for making the time to come on the show and for sharing your story with us and all the incredible knowledge. Really grateful for your time, and I really look forward to meeting you in person.
Yeah, likewise, Svetlana. Really great to meet you.